Hello, everyone. Today we're going to focus on a presentation about what is SEL. SEL stands for Social Emotional Learning. SEL programming involves implementing practices and policies that help children and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that can enhance personal development, establish satisfying interpersonal relationships, and lead to effective and ethical work and productivity. So, why do teachers care about SEL? It really comes down to our students. We want our students to thrive. In this slide, you're actually going to take a look at my school site. I've been working here. This will be the third year I have been in the classroom as a second grade teacher for Woodbine Elementary. This school is located in South Sacramento, which is actually only about 6 blocks from where I grew up. So it is really my home away from home, and I have an affinity to what my students go through because it is very similar to some of the things that I went through because I grew up in the same neighborhood. I still live only a few minutes away. And so I understand the trauma my students face because I've experienced it firsthand. I didn't have the best experiences when I was in elementary. I've experienced some really situations that did not promote a social emotional well-being. I can remember one time where a teacher actually told me, "Good thing you're pretty because you're stupid." I can't imagine one of my students experiencing something like that. I've experienced racism. I was attacked because of the color of my skin, and many of my students have expressed experiencing racism or situations of high trauma that have occurred outside of the school setting. And some of them have actually even experienced it at the school setting, which is why the entire school has tried to really focus on that whole SEL piece and really try to turn it around for these students. Um, as you look into this picture, you can see my beautiful mural that we has just painted in front of our school. Thank you. Thanks in part to a SIG grant my school is receiving. And then the two pictures you see to the right of the slide are me participating on different attendance challenge days where my second graders hit the 95% attendance challenge. So we do a little assembly to try to really get the kids enthusiastic about coming to school every day. The one at the top is our one for February of 2020, where the second graders hit a 95% attendance challenge. So me and my grade level partner are smothering our principal with a pie, and the students were very, very excited. And the one you see right underneath that is for the ice bucket challenge for October, where the entire school hit 95%. So we got to dump a big bucket of ice water in October on our principal, which the kids love. And really it's all about positive interactions. So as a teacher, you're really going to come down to the thought of how does SEL help with learning inside the classroom? Because in the end of the day, we're here to teach our students. Well, the short answer is SEL helps students learn to handle stress, and that could be stress from trauma, stress from um, just from stress from academics, stress from interpersonal relationships, uh, whatever the stress is. See, I'm gonna go into a little bit about brain research just because it's kind of one of my things that I love. When a person experiences a form of stress, their brain sends a signal that bypasses the brain's communication. This is known as the amygdala hijack. This alarm stops all cognitive function, such as learning, problem solving, and creative thinking. And we know as teachers that students need their communication center of their brain in order to learn. So SEL is going to be that thing that you can actually reach out and help students use those UDL principles of self regulation to really be able to bypass that stress and be able to mitigate it so they can learn inside the classroom. So, I want to kind of take a look about the overall arch of social emotional learning. As you can see in this slide, there are 5 main components. self awareness, self management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. And then outside of those five components, you have the classroom, the schools, and homes and communities. The outermost is our family and community partnerships of the homes and communities, because that's where our students spend the time when they're not with us. And that is, in my specific circumstance, where my students sometimes face a lot of trauma. Um, a lot of my students actually go home to an empty house because their parents are working. Uh, Single parent household. Some of my parents live. Some of my teach. Some of my students actually live with aunts, uncles, grandparents, and or only have one parent in the picture. I Our school is located by a reunification center, so quite a few students from the school are just now coming back to their one or two of their parents, and that comes with a lot of trauma from going to the foster care system. And then when we go up to drop down to schools, we want to look at the school-wide practices and policies that are in place. How those policies and procedures are in place really do affect how students interact with the staff as a whole, with each other. What are the rules? My specific school uses PBIS, and this is our first rollout year of it, uh, which is all about positive interactions with students and redirecting students. And so throughout the school, you'll see different rules posted, and it's all in a positive language. You say you will use a level 2 voice. There Instead of you will not speak, it says you will use a level 2 voice. It's all a matter of how things are presented. So and it's consistent from classroom to classroom and location to location. Um, and it really has improved attendance tremendously. We've already gone up 5% in the last year, and we're only uh, it's February, so we're only 6 months into the 6 months into the school year now, and attendance has increased dramatically. Students are starting to reduce the amount of referrals and citations that they're receiving because they're starting to use those self-regulation techniques that are being taught um, across the campus. And then we go down even further to classrooms, the SEL curriculum and instruction. So, what does that look like inside the classroom setting? In my classroom, we use a second this in my classroom, we use a program called Second Step, and this is our SEL curriculum. That curriculum teaches students about empathy. It teaches students about how to mitigate conversations. It teaches students basically how to interact with each other in positive ways. And then it's also a part of our daily instruction. We don't just do SEL during SEL time. It's also before every curriculum section we do. Before ELA, we'll do a movement break, and then we'll do a guided mindfulness. That helps students get out their excess energy, and then it helps students focus to get ready for the next lesson. Then when we come back for math, we do the same thing. We do another movement break, some type of guided dance, and then we'll go back to the mindfulness. Sometimes that's something like yoga, sometimes it's just a sitting there and listening to the guided meditation where it's asking you to focus on a dot or breathing or friendship. It just depends on what my students need for the moment, which ones we focus on. My school district partnered with HealthNet, so I have access to Go Noodle, the premium functions where my students have a lot of different movement and guided meditation videos. And then when we go a little bit further in, we see the five main components, which I'm going to be looking at in the next three slides: self awareness, self management, responsible decision making, social awareness, and relationship skills. Now, I'm going to try to quickly go through the five core competencies because I could really spend another half hour really looking in depthly at these different components of social emotional learning. So, the first I'm going to look at is self awareness, the ability to accurately recognize one's own emotions, thoughts, and values, and how they influence behavior. The ability to accurately assess one's strengths and limitations, as well grounded sense of confidence, optimism, and a growth mindset. I'm a huge believer of the growth mindset. If you ever get a chance, read Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain. This is a book that I got during a CTA conference, and really it is one of the things that has helped me reach out to my students and understand how their brains function and how it affects education. Um, but I'll try not to go too far into that because I could really talk for another 15, 20 minutes just on a growth mindset. So, students in this core competency focus on identifying emotions, having a accurate self perception, recognizing their strengths, which is really big because you want students to recognize what they're strong at and have self confidence and self efficacy. And if you get a chance, really look at the growth mindset because students that know that they can keep going and know that they can grow, there's a lot of research that proves a brain growth actually happens uh, better when they use a growth mindset. The next two core competencies we're going to look at are self management and responsible decision making, which are all incredibly important to the education process. Self management is the ability to successfully regulate one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors in different situations, effectively managing stress, controlling impulses, and motivating oneself, the ability to set and work towards personal and academic goals. I believe goal setting is really big. Even as a second grade teacher, we spend a lot of time setting our own goals and working towards those goals. It's important that the goal setting is reasonable and it's achievable. And then a lot of impulse control is really big within second grade as well. If you get a chance, use a lot of sensory objects. You'd be amazed what a little squishy chair or squishy balls or stretchy bands or fidget things can do to helping students improve their attention in class. Responsible decision making is really big because students learn about using their choices, making constructive choice off of personal behavior and social interactions based on ethical standards, safety concerns, and social norms. A realistic evaluation of consequences of various actions and the consideration of others' well-being and one themselves. So, can students identify problems, analyze situations, solve problems, evaluate what had happened, reflect on it, and understand their ethical responsibilities? The last two areas of core competency for social emotional learning that we're going to look at are social awareness and relationship skills. So, social awareness is the ability to take perspective of and empathize with others, including those from diverse backgrounds and cultures, and the ability to understand social and ethical norms for behavior and recognize family, school, and community resources and supports. So, empathy is the really big key one for this because students need to develop a sense of empathy for their peers. And that will actually go a long way for building relationships. When you can understand what another person is thinking and feeling, you can have a better understanding of how to approach them and how to help them or how to resolve problems. And and just a general respect for others. And then when it comes to relationship skills, the ability to establish and maintain healthy and rewarding relationships with diverse individuals and groups. The ability to communicate clearly, listen well, and cooperate with others, resist inappropriate social pressures, negotiate conflict constructively, and seek and offer help when needed. That includes like communication, social engagement, relationship building, and teamwork. And as in a lot of subjects, especially if you do any type of group work, this is incredibly important because students are going to have to learn how to communicate with others and work together. And let's take a look of in math. In math, students have to be able to use the standards of mathematical practice and explain their mathematical thinking. So they have to have those communication strengths. In PE, they're going to have to work in teams. In science, a lot of them are group projects where they're going to be working with somebody and partnering and being having to communicate their thoughts and work as a team. And so that is really important for students to be able to do. Well, thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I really appreciate your time. You have a wonderful day.